jumped the
Matt
gun.
is so giddy with excitement.
I jumped the gun.
Well, we're on a new pack. Matt and I think he mentioned we split another one of these big other half packs, and I just got my box a couple days
All right,
ago.
it just arrived, right?
Yeah, this is my first one actually that I'm having, and it is Overripe.
Good
And I
choice.
like it because it has a skeleton playing. I guess it might be. They probably meant it to be a guitar, but anatomically it would be more like a ukulele because it's very small and it only has 4 strings. So really, it would be a ukulele.
Have you sampled it yet?
I have not.
I think it's supposed to be ukulele, by the way.
Oh, okay, then they were right. Good job. Oh, wow.
Does it taste like it's got freaking juice in there?
Yeah, it does.
It's nuts.
It is, yeah. So on the description, they say this tropical hazy IPA gives notes of cantaloupe, guava, pineapple, and papaya. I mean, it basically tastes like it's like pineapple juice partly.
Yeah.
Like quite fruity. I mean, it's good, but yeah, quite fruity. It looks like it's other half did a Great Notion recipe. Does that sound right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Great Notion's Great Notion's an awesome place right up in Portland.
In where?
Portland.
Oh, Portland,
Oregon.
Maine? Oregon. It's really nice, just like super fruity. Wow.
Yeah.
Like,
What kind of beer is it?
IPA.
A fruity IPA. Nice.
Yeah, just described as just like a hazy IPA, but yeah.
Fruity IPA. There's no fruit in
fruity.
it though, which is the nuts part.
Yeah, that's what's really fascinating about how they get those kind of flavors without actually putting with just hops, right? I mean, they're just using the basic 4 beer ingredients or whatever, right?
I believe so.
And yet they are able to like get it to taste kind of like pineapple juice. It's really quite impressive. What do you guys got?
Matt, you want me to go?
Yeah.
This is courtesy of friend of the podcast, Devin Conley. There we go. Kept it. Warm Your Bones from Treehouse.
Fuck yeah. You got yourself some Treehouse.
Just one beer, but he delivered the beer, and for like the 10th time, I forgot to give him his mug for being on the show. Like as soon as he left, I was like, "Damn it!"
You got dad brain.
Thought about it.
And I know you got dad brain, but come on.
I know. I had thought about it while he was here, and I was like, I'm gonna go upstairs at some point for something for Stella or Aria, and just totally forgot about it. Yeah, but beer's okay. It's a winter ale.
Okay.
So,
Interesting.
Yeah, definitely different than what I normally drink, but good.
So I, at a Wegmans in New Jersey, stumbled upon the Saranac throwback pack. So I got myself an Adirondack lager.
Wow.
From Saranac.
Very impressive.
I'm drinking it in the appropriate glassware.
Nice. Where is I feel terrible asking this because I should know. Where is Saranac?
You run races, or you used to. You worked at a marathon.
Oh, right.
They're in Utica. They're the Boilermaker. Come on.
Yep.
Oh, Utica.
They line the streets with kegs at the finish line.
I know. I just needed the refresher. That's
10K with lots and lots of beer.
It was. I think it was either slightly less or slightly more than a 10K, if I remember correctly.
But yeah, this tastes like Liverpool.
I'm very impressed you're drinking a Saranac lager.
And I'm going to follow it up with a Saranac Pilsner.
Somebody like you drinking Saranac? It's very very unpretentious. I like it. I admire it.
How many times have I said I'm an equal opportunity beer drinker? Right? You want to crack open a Jenny Cream Ale? Fuck yeah. You want to crack open hams and cans because that's all you got at the bar that you're at? Fuck yeah, I'll drink a ham and a can.
What is that?
For those who don't know, is a Midwest brand in the Chicago, Michigan, and Wisconsin, Minnesota area. It's one of my favorite stories because on Memorial Day of 2012, as I stumbled into a bar with 3 friends looking for lunch and a beer, the bartender of this homely, quiet, dank cave of a bar called the Home Bar in Kalamazoo, Michigan, said, "We got Bud, Miller, and hams and cans." And so we got a couple pitchers of Miller. I didn't try the hams that day, but every time I see hams now, it's hams and cans.
Love it.
Now, the important question, Matt, was that pitcher of Miller better than the pitchers of the whatever that blonde ale we got before Jeter's last
Oh,
year?
At Rudy's.
Yes. Right? That I don't know what that beer was made of or who brewed it, but it served its purpose.
Hey, but it wasn't like $14 for
it served its purpose. We were three young adults that were on a budget because we spent all our money on Derek Jeter tickets.
Yep.
So it served its purpose, right? I was happy, and we got a couple pictures of Saranac too.
Did we?
Yeah, or not Saranac, of Sam Adams. I got
PBR?
2 pictures of Sam Adams Oktoberfest. I remember because that was like $22.
Yeah.
But I still think whatever that beer was is what gave me that headache that night.
Yeah. Well, when we went to Burial, Matt, on Friday, Toddy and I got out for with Aria, and then Stella was being watched by her nanny. So we went out Friday afternoon, first time like since pregnancy and everything, just for one drink, just to get out. It was a nice day, sunshine. They have a rooftop bar in our old neighborhood, and I don't remember. I think the last time I was at a brewery was in Raleigh when I went to Trophy. And I don't remember what the beer prices were then, but that was like November. It's been a while since I've gone out, and we paid $9 for each for a glass of beer. And I mean, I told Toddy like right away, I was like, oh my God, I don't know if it's because it's been so long or whatnot, but just like having it on tap, like fresh out of it, like it tastes so much better than drinking it out of the can. But at the same time, I was like, $9 freaking for one beer. I was like, what? I know inflation, I know, whatever's happening in this economy, but oh my God, I can't imagine what that pitcher is in New York now. It's got to be like $34 or something like that.
$9 is steep, but I'm trying to think. Let's see.
I mean, when we went to Yankee Stadium for Jeter in what, 2014 or 15?
Yeah, 14.
Didn't we get like those tall plastic things of Bud Light, and that was like $11
for like 11? Yeah. 11,
no, I thought they were more than that. I thought they were like 14 back then, weren't they?
Maybe. I don't know. But they were definitely like over 10, and it was fucking Bud Light, which is like the worst beer ever.
Yeah.
But we did get to keep those plastic Yankee cups.
I mean, when I was in New York City at Madison Square Garden for Billy Joel, a Guinness and a rum and Coke. What do you think it cost me?
Okay, hold on.
I would say north of $40.
Oh, and a water.
Like a bottled water?
Yeah.
North of $50 then.
I'll say 40 to 50 range.
48.
Holy fuck.
Yeah. I was like, good fuck you, James Dolan. Oh no, I can't say that. No, unfuck you, James Dolan. Please don't use your facial recognition to ban my face from going in your venues.
Did he do that to somebody?
Because he's a lunatic who can't take any criticism.
Wow. He's the is he the owner of the Knicks? Is that right?
He owns MSG, the network,
MSG.
Which means he owns the Knicks.
Wow.
But that means he also owns Radio City Music Hall, and I think he owns a couple other venues in New York City as well.
Yeah.
Wow.
He's a big mogul.
Yeah, he's also I'm gonna hold my tongue.
He's a big douchebag.
Alan said it, not me, James. Please let me in your venues.
I don't care. I have no desire to go watch the Knicks anytime soon.
But what if the Eagles are playing their last, best, only show ever again in Madison Square Garden? They're like, Colin Cernelia, you've been our fan since you were listening to music. Come on in. And then they're like, you're going to come on stage and play the Shaker with us on Love Will Keep Us Alive. I don't know, just bringing up a song. And then you walk in and James Dolan's like, nope, get that guy out of here.
Well, honestly, I think there's a better chance that it's Bruce who's playing his final show in New York than the Eagles. The Eagles will probably play their final show out in California. So, But point
Bruce
taken.
would be even worse, right?
Yeah, it would hurt, but I just don't see that happening.
I have to say though, like, and I was warned by my guest with me to the show. I was warned that Madison Square Garden isn't all that great.
Yeah,
and they were right. Like, it wasn't all that great.
Yeah,
it was complicated to get in. It's hard to get in and out. It's small. The only good thing was that for like the hour and out, the first hour they were open, all the food was half price.
Yeah, I mean the venues like that have the nostalgic, thing.
But
it's like
does
it's
it
like
though?
Fenway.
Like, I mean, it was only built in the '60s, right?
Yeah, but the NBA's only been around since like the 40s.
Like, still, like, I don't know, knock it down.
I think somebody good at marketing just built up that place. You hear MSG, you hear Madison Square Garden. It just sounds like really impressive and important.
The world's most famous arena. Yeah, no, it's not. The Coliseum is.
I think it was a big deal, back in
Roman Coliseum
in the 70s and the 90s, like when the Knicks are really good, from a basketball perspective, like that place rocks. And then obviously they can do a whole bunch of other things. But yeah, it is probably getting old, and New York City is old and decrepit and disgusting.
What I did not realize until I was there, and then I felt like a rube, but it's on top of Penn Station. I did not know that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I was like, well, that's why it's never going anywhere, because like no one's gonna touch all that.
Yeah, it would be a massive project.
Yep.
Well, boys, I think it's only fair that football season is officially over for all of us. And,
a little bit different when you play a good defense, isn't it, Saquon? Isn't it, Daniel?
Saquon had the
worst defense in the league. He actually played someone with a backbone, and
oh my God, Saquon had the only good plays.
Sincerely, Philadelphia.
Whatever. What I was gonna say is, I don't think any of our preseason predictions were right. The Packers certainly didn't win the Super Bowl because they didn't even make the playoffs. Saquon had a good year, but he's not going to win the MVP. And, Ethan, I think you had the best chance for a little while to say like, oh, the NFL is a great product. Like, watch the NFL. And then that whole Damar Hamlin thing happened. And like, for a moment, the NFL, after they did the wrong thing, they did the right thing. But now it's like that never happened. And I guarantee it's the same thing with guns. I tell this to Toddy all the time. The only way gun safety changes in this country is if it is the president's kids or these Congress people, like their kids, they're the ones who get mowed down at school or something like that. And for the NFL, the only way something changes with player safety is if somebody literally dies on the field. And Damar Hamlin was as close as we're ever, or as we've gotten to see to this point. I do think it happens.
It's happened,
unfortunately, before. At some point. And
in the NFL, Matt?
Yeah, I think back in the 70s.
Yeah, I'm talking about, they had no player safety back then. I'm talking about in today's day and age with all of the knowledge that we have around concussions and just what the physicality of that league can do to somebody. And then on top of that, social media and the connectiveness that we all have, to the league these days. And the Damar Hamlin thing is like basically all but forgotten at this point. It only happened like 2.5 weeks ago. Wasn't even that long ago.
Yep.
Yeah. So I don't even think, Ethan, you were on the best track of the three of us, but that derails it for me.
Well, my thing was bullshit to begin with, right? I mean, that was an impossible task. The only thing you can do is I think do what I did, which is to say, forget about morality and ethics. These people made a voluntary decision to do this incredibly dangerous thing, which is true, technically speaking. They know it's dangerous, and they did make a voluntary decision to do it. Mm-hmm. And it's, say what you want, but many millions of people think it's a really exciting and fun sport to play and to watch. They, and all of these people who play it do think it's worth the danger still. And, so that is what it is, right? But yeah, no, I mean, I obviously agree with you, and I mean, God, that was like, we didn't really even talk about that on the pod, did we?
No.
Yeah, that was like terrifying. I remember watching the highlight like that same night or whatever. Really, really, really scary to see. I was like, you know, really, really happy that he pulled out, because I, to be honest, wasn't really expecting it. So
Yeah. I mean, the Penn State game had ended 20 minutes, I think, before that happened. And, just being on the high of that and like being really happy and everything. And then I'm on Twitter and all of a sudden I see this and it's blowing up and it's just like, it just shakes you to your core. And it didn't like ruin the mood, right? But it did, like, it was a reality check. It was like, oh shit, this is really dangerous and this sucks. But
yeah,
that feeling, I feel like as a collective only lasted through the point where it was like, okay, he's making a recovery and he's probably never going to play football again, but he's going to live. Whereas if he had died, maybe we're having a different conversation about it. But
yeah. Well, we also had 2 mass shootings the last 2 days, bigger
26, I think, already this year.
3, Matt.
America.
Yeah. So, yeah, well, that's the thing in America, right? Or really in the world, right? If you pay close enough attention, even if America was this like perfect utopian ideal place, or any country for that matter, Sweden, whatever, or Finland, right? Finland has been like #1 in the world happiness index for the last like several years, right? So imagine in some scenario that Finland is this perfect utopia, everybody's happy, everything's great, right? If you pay attention to the rest of the world, it's still fucking garbage. You know what I mean? I mean, we are most familiar with American garbage because we are in the midst of it, right? But I mean, there's, horrid shit all the time everywhere, which is, why I think it's like important. It's a difficult kind of situation. I don't know that we've talked about it in depth, but I think people in like the modern world, Colin, you were talking about like connectedness with technology and everything. You gotta kind of have a quota for yourself in terms of like how much of the world you absorb on a daily basis. Like I remember in the early days of COVID, when I was just like reading the news all the time and I was like going on Twitter all the time. And that is a real quick way to go into like true despondence, and like on the one hand, it's a natural reaction to be despondent if you're really like paying attention to all of the horrid shit and really like taking it personally. But on the other hand, you're not going to be able to function as a person if you are in the depths of despair all the time. And if you're not able to function as a person, ideally you're the type of person who wants to try to make things better, right? So if you can't function as a person, what point are you, what purpose are you serving, right? You're just torturing yourself basically. So yeah, it's like a really difficult thing. I don't know if that's something you guys watch for yourself, but I know like for me, in the early days of COVID, I ended up hitting a point where I was like, you know what? I'm only going to allow myself to like check the news or check Twitter such and such amount,
Yeah.
It's really difficult.
I like to characterize it not as American garbage, Ethan, but as American cheese.
American cheese.
It's got the appearance of wholesomeness and a good, but it's really just plastic and fake product. And in the,
this is good.
In the wise words of Tyler Spencer, aka Dick Valentine, lead singer of Electric Six, have another slice of American cheese.
I like that. That's good.
I believe I'll sing the chorus, or I'll read the chorus. Can't see the forest through the trees. I make my living in American cheese, bringing everybody to their knees. So have another slice of American cheese. And then he ends each chorus with a pun, a cheese pun. So either I know it would be better with Gouda or cheddar, or I'm not an Italian fella, but I like mozzarella. So lots of good cheese puns.
Well, I got a good way to segue out of this, and then let's talk about the Hall of Fame.
Well, wait. I wanted to. Sorry, I gotta.
Go ahead.
I'm going to be a bit of a sentimental person and a bit of an asshole, because I'm going to say, as the only one of the three of us to play organized football,
I did play flag football for 1 year in like first grade.
real organized football.
Oh, okay, all right. right,
you know,
continue.
with
Hey,
no
the
weight
Pro Bowl's
limits.
flag football this year.
What? Pro Bowl?
The Pro
Yeah.
Bowl's flag.
Oh, funny. Okay.
I mean,
Sorry,
there's
Matt,
a
yeah,
reason
go ahead.
I did drunkenly tell your dad at your wedding, Colin, right? He was smart to not let you play, even though I think you would have been a great football player. I don't think I fully recognized it, and I still question to this day what kind of things I could have done to my body.
Sure.
And I had a family member die on the football field. Don't forget that. You guys know this. My cousin Ridge,
I did not remember this.
playing for Phoenix, died on the football field in Homer.
What happened? Was it like a brutal like head-to-head hit or something?
Subdural hematoma. And
explain that for
it's a deep brain bruise, but it doesn't register immediately. So I think oh shoot, Liam Neeson's wife died that way on the ski slopes, right?
Jesus fucking Christ.
So I mean, he had a blunt trauma to the head, and then he played 4 or 5 more plays, and then just said, "I don't feel good," and died.
Jesus. When he would, what was he, like 16 years old?
10th
17,
grade, I think.
So he was like 14 or 15?
Yeah.
Holy fuck.
And you have a real ethical problem watching the NFL, and I consume the NFL. Having that happen, having injuries to myself, having lost a family member to it, I'm still a consumer of it. And as much as I tell myself I don't want to be, sometimes I get drawn back. I enjoy watching it, but I don't see in 100 years that sport surviving in the same way it still does.
Yeah.
And you can talk about the let's say exploitation of the athletes. You can talk about the ethical missteps of the NFL, which there are plenty. But ultimately these, a lot of these athletes see professional football. They see the risk of their life and their body as appropriate for the potential financial reward. And unfortunately, the fraction of the people who actually get there is so small that it's not worth it. I mean, the guys end up broken in a lot of cases, right? You're not your college health insurance ends when you're done, right? They're not going to get the surgery. You play 4 years as a mid-tier, bottom of the Power 5 second string lineman, right? You're going to get yourself demolished every day in practice. But after your 4 years done, you better hope you had a degree, because you're not getting anything out of that. And that's why I think you're forever going to see some sort of attraction. There's always going to be enough people for an XFL or a USFL, but that's just as bad, right? We don't need more football right now. We don't need more football games in the season. We don't need bigger college seasons, right? There's a lot to it. And again, I love the sport. I love playing it. But when I was a 15-year-old making that decision versus when I was a 25-year-old, right? 25-year-old at Colin's wedding, 26 or 27.
2017. Yeah, we would have been 27.
Yeah.
It's a big difference. And again, I drunkenly waxed poetic to your dad, but how wise he was there. Soccer was dangerous enough. You didn't need to be playing football. And I don't know if you guys remember. I mean, there is risk whatever sport you play.
Yeah.
Baseball could kill you, right? I think before we got to high school, didn't a guy in CMI die playing lacrosse, right? Because this is my theory on still what happened to Damar. Right. If you map out your EKG, if you have a blunt force impact to your chest at a certain point through your heartbeat, it could stop your heart. Because there was I think he was a lacrosse goalie somewhere in New York, in upstate New York, who got hit in the chest protector with a lacrosse ball at the very right point, and he died. I still remember that, because I remember people in Ethan in our wonderful science fair in 9th grade doing projects about gel pads to try and dissipate and absorb that force, because it can kill you.
Yeah.
But anyway, what I'm getting back to is, they explained it to me. I didn't realize it. I don't think I fully grasped it back then. I gotta hope by the time you're old enough to get through college and the NFL, you do grasp it. And hopefully, if there's anything that tells us, it is a big reminder that, like, oh shit, maybe I should play rugby. I'd rather break my nose than die You know, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know where I'm ending this, but it is, you know, it was scary to see. I didn't even watch it live. I think
Yeah.
it's miraculous that he's still alive. Credit to the athletic training staff. Holy shit. I mean, I was reading reports that they did CPR on him for 10 minutes just to make sure his brain kept getting oxygen. That's nuts. Credit to the team that, I mean, the response, I think someone was at,
Under
you know,
10
to
seconds,
him
I think.
within 20 seconds, right? You know, all these things are awesome, you know, examples of things happening, you know, working the way they should, but in general, it shouldn't have gotten to that point to begin with. And I'm gonna end it there
Okay.
before I rant anymore.
But two things. I know we should move on, but two things. And we don't need to dwell on them too long. But I just want your like quick impressions. Number one is the Hamlin thing. The one thing that I'm still that I haven't like read a conclusive thing about. The hit itself, and correct me if I'm wrong, the hit itself did not look like a crazy out of line hit. It looked like a pretty normal okay tackle. Is that right?
Yep.
It was not the most violent hit.
Yeah. So Hamlin just
good
got
form.
like he just got super unlucky somehow.
Yeah, I mean, it was directly into his chest, right? I mean, but
Yeah, so maybe it was like what you were talking about,
but
where
it,
that
it
like
wasn't it wasn't there are, you could list 100 more violent hits in the NFL easily
yeah,
this year.
right, exactly. I was reading so Joe Paz has been counting down the football 101 he's been doing, right? And he did one a few weeks ago on Ronnie Lott, the famous safety from the 49ers, right, when we were kids, and he was like notorious for his hits. And I went and I watched like some highlights of it, and I don't think a lot of that shit would fly these days. It's
Yeah.
really interesting.
Yeah.
There's a meme going around of like this CBS Sunday Football from the 1980s. And it's basically the text at the top goes, it's just the intro to the Sunday Football broadcast. And it's like 99% of these hits would be illegal today.
Yeah.
And you watch it, you go, oh yeah, oh shit. Like, oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. Okay, and then the second thing, so we briefly mentioned Shoresy, the spin-off from Letterkenny, and it's very hockey centered. So these are Canadian comedies from this Canadian comic actor named Jared Keeso, who played pretty high level hockey. I was reading up on it and is like a massive hockey fan, right? And so he has this new show called Shoresy. It's like all about a hockey team, and there's actually like everybody except for him on the like the main characters, they're all like real pro hockey players,
cool.
which is really cool.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I've been going down kind of a hockey rabbit hole, you know. So I used to, you guys, gosh, well, actually, this would have been before I met Matt. There were a couple of years when we were kids where I was actually like a really big hockey fan, like 2000 to 2003, something like that, right? And then the lockout happened. They missed an entire season, and I never really started following again after that. But in any case, I've been just like reading a lot, and I've been listening to some hockey podcasts and just like kind of getting back into it. And the interesting thing is, you know, and I think there's an obvious answer. We don't hear much about any of this stuff when it comes to hockey, but I got to imagine that hockey is like close to as bad, if not as bad as football. I think there are probably some cases where maybe the hits, you know, aren't quite as bad as like the worst possible tackle in football, right? Like a horrible head-to-head tackle in football is like truly horrible. And in hockey, that would have to be somebody doing something like evil to do something like that. But the amount of like physical damage that these guys are taking, let alone the fact that like all of these fights are like so common. And I know that these guys are tough as shit, and I know they're only hitting each other with like their bare fists, but like if you do that enough times, like the human hand is hard, the bones are hard. And I mean, there have been some studies, you know, CTE is a thing for retired hockey players, same as football players. And it's interesting to me, I don't think that hockey is getting the same attention. I think it's because hockey is just so much less popular than football, right? But I was just thinking about that, like it's same as football. It's like this fun, fast-paced physical sport. Like it's really cool. But fucking brutal, like really brutal.
I think there's two things, and Colin, sorry to keep going on this, that hockey has for it that maybe mitigates that. Number one, being on the ice, right? So if you know, just think about the physics, Ethan. If you and I were standing at each other and we pushed each other, like part of our force would direct us backwards, right? Because you know you're not dug in like you are with cleats and depositing all of your force in the other person. The other thing is that the boards, when you do have these cross checks, these hits in the boards are designed to give. So that will absorb some of the force too. But to Ethan's point, to give the counterpoint, any sort of fall onto the ice is terrifying, right? And I'm going to bring up a name that you guys will hopefully remember, because this is the last Hamlin type incident I can think of in the NHL. Todd Bertuzzi. You guys remember that name?
I do. Yeah, I remember
the chase down punch from behind that ended up with him. I think he broke bones in his face or broke bones in his neck or something, and he was driven down into the ice, almost put him in the hospital, almost killed the guy. Like that. You're right, Ethan. That's there too. The scientist in me wants to put accelerometers on everyone. Put accelerometers in the hats or in your helmets and see
fascinating.
What's the violent, how violent are these hits?
Yeah.
Whether it's in the football helmet and you've got the plastic on plastic, or in a hockey, again, a fall on the ice just is terrifying to me.
Well, it's like, obviously we all remember my elbow right now. I wasn't going that fast. So, but I want to make an actual point. Obviously, yes, it's hilarious, but
sorry,
embarrassing. No. But like, there's an actual point to be made, which is to say, humans, we think, right, in our head, I don't think we realize as a general rule how fragile we are. I was not going that fast. I did not fall from a great height, and still my fucking bone broke, and it was a big ass break. You guys remember. Now, granted, I am not super, super fit and muscular like NHL players. Those guys are presumably wearing lots of padding. However, like any hit, when you are that big, or falling on the ice when you are that big and you are going that fast, like there's a lot of power in any of this. I don't care how good a shape you're in, and the padding, I'm sure the padding helps, but like, do we really think that they're wearing enough to like totally mitigate this shit? Like, I highly doubt it.
I know the socks are tall, but the hockey players are technically wearing shorts.
Right. That's right. Yeah. So yeah, it's kind of wild to think about, right? I mean, yeah, like the ice is real fucking hard, and these guys are moving real fast. They're really big. They're really strong. It's pretty nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd have to do some more research on it, but I feel like part of the reason that boxing declined in popularity, because boxing was like, the sport for a long time in this country, was because of the gruesome injuries that could come from it. And that's why at the same time, it's kind of surprising that UFC, took off and got as popular, and it's still very popular, today.
Right.
Because it's probably even more gruesome.
Human cockfighting? That's what it feels like
really.
sometimes.
Seriously.
Right. So I don't know. I'd have to do some research on that to give an informed take, but
okay,
it is all crazy.
Two things on that really quickly. Number one, I totally agree. I think that's a good point. I remember watching like a few years ago some like Mike Tyson highlights, because Mike Tyson was like the best in the world for a while, right? And he was also kind of notorious for, his like violence and brutality. I mean, he was following the rules other than the ear thing, and maybe there were some other incidents too, right? But if you watch like any of like the famous clips or whatever, he's doing just regular old boxing. He was just so strong and so fast. And I mean, you watch these clips and it's like really scary to watch. Like the way these guys are just like beating the shit out of each other. But yeah. I do want to finish more lighthearted. Well, maybe lighthearted depending on your perspective. Can't remember if I've talked about this on the pod. I don't think so, because I don't remember us ever talking about boxing. Do yourselves a favor, everyone, and go, after you're done with this, go to YouTube and search for Mike Tyson Eat Your Children. Okay? Matt, do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Go and watch this video. It's like a minute long. It's after a fight. Mike Tyson is clearly hyped up on like an insane amount of adrenaline. And the, like the MC guy or whatever asks him some question about the fight. And Tyson just goes on this like epic rant where he references Allah, and he uses like one of the common like Muslim phrases. And now he also talks like a ton of shit about, whoever it was that he was talking about, Lennox Lewis, I think Lennox Lewis maybe, about what he's going to do to that guy and everything, and just talking about how he's the best. It's amazing. It is just 1 minute of like pure gold. I feel bad because I feel like even at that point he was probably already pretty fucking insane and probably had already damaged his brain from all of his boxing. But it's pretty funny, I have to say. So
now
Mike
he's only
Tyson, eat your children.
the second worst person on Adult Swim right now.
Who's the second worst person on Adult Swim?
Tyson.
Oh, what does he do on Adult Swim?
He's got the Mike Tyson Magical Mystery Show.
Oh, I forgot about that. I've never watched that.
It actually looks pretty goofy, pretty funny.
Yes. I mean, I don't know. Do we want to get into the Roiland thing? Like, it's
no, it's okay.
Extremely disappointing. We can leave it at that.
We could save more disappointment for next week.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Fuck Dana White though.
Yes, 100%.
He UFC guy, is that right?
Yeah. He's a white guy getting away with not murder.
Slapped his wife in public 2 weeks ago and no consequences.
Yeah,
very interesting.
Like not slapped, like hit her hard.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Anyway, Colin.
Yeah. Okay, so this segue is definitely worth the wait. All right. So I'm reading Elton John's memoir right now.
Okay.
It's very good so far. I just started yesterday or today. I can't remember. And he is it Buddy Holly, right? The musician.
Mm-hmm.
So Elton John needed glasses, but he only needed them at first to like read the chalkboard, or something like that. But he thought they made him look like Buddy Holly, so he kept wearing them, and it really damaged his eyesight. So he needed to wear glasses permanently after that. So, Elton John's pretty famous for his look with that and everything. Anyway, the funny part about the story that he's telling in his memoir is, at least in England, one of the things that parents used to tell kids when they were, getting to puberty or get caught masturbating or whatever it is like, you'll go blind. And so Elton John says that he was so frightened because he had already fucked up his eyes so bad on his own that he wasn't sure. Like, he's like, I think it's a myth, but I'm not sure. And he's like, I'm probably the only person who could ever tell a story about how their parents told him that they were blind, they would get blind, and I wanted to look like Buddy Holly, and that got me to stop wanking, type thing. And it was a hilarious line in the book, and I was just like, not expecting that at all from Elton John of all people. But really, really good book so far. Very, very interesting getting a look into 1950s England. It is not a fun place.
Well, and also being a gay guy growing up in those decades must have been pretty interesting.
Yeah, he hasn't gotten too much into that yet. I don't, from what I've read so far, I don't know how sure he was at that point in his life, although he has hinted at it multiple times already,
right?
But yeah, it's but it just seems like a very depressing post-war, gloomy, gray, kind of like Syracuse, honestly. Like it made me feel like Syracuse. So
right. I want to real quick to tack on to that. That's cool you brought that up, and cool you're reading that. I have a piano student, no joke, 9. I think he's 9. I don't think he's turned 10 yet. Maybe he's turning 10 soon. He fucking loves Elton John.
Nice.
And so a few months ago, his parents got him like this Elton John, piano book, and we've been working on it. And it's like, honestly, it's like pretty hard, and it's like, kind of above him. But when in terms of his skill level right now, but when he gets really excited about something, he will really work hard and get it down. And we just had a studio recital last weekend, and he did not singing, but just playing. He's playing chords in his left hand and the melody in his right hand. And he did 2 Elton John songs on this past recital. He sounded fucking awesome on them. Anyways, what was interesting is, you guys know, I grew up on classic rock, but around like 2008, probably, I moved on to other genres, and I've barely listened to classic rock since. Now, I liked Elton John okay growing up. I liked Rocket Man, and I liked, like, That's Why They Call It the Blues, but I was never wild about Elton John. But I will say this, revisiting his music because of my student playing some of the songs, he and his he didn't write by himself. He wrote with Bernie Taupin a lot. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. They're fucking awesome. They're like really, really great composers. I mean, I haven't been paying as much attention to the lyrics, but musically speaking, like, super cool, super interesting. Lots of interesting chords and like unexpected chord progressions, which not super common for pop music, and the fact that he has had the career that he's had, kind of doing what he did in terms of his chords and his harmonies, it's really, really impressive. So props to Elton John. I never would have thought about it that much until working on these songs with my students. So
Matt's been there with me outside. We didn't get in the Troubadour, but one day I will get in the Troubadour. It was closed. But Elton John's American debut at the Troubadour in 71-ish, like around there, is like one of the most famous things in rock and roll history. Like, he just blew people away immediately. And I haven't gotten to this point in the memoir yet. But I know that from another book that I read about the year 1971. There's a documentary on Apple TV, and there's a book about how that year changed the world, like music changed the world. And he didn't even want to really go to America, but he did, and he got super popular. And it was just like, okay, well, here we go. So
yeah,
just and he came from, I think about, like, we're going down really weird rabbit holes today, but he came from a very broken home. His mom was a lunatic. His dad was like less of a lunatic, but not a very warm, loving person. He was on pins and needles all the time, he said, growing up. Like, it was just very, like, Bruce was like that. Like, a lot of people who end up being famous, for lack of a better word, come from these backgrounds. And it makes me think that, like, you literally almost have like nothing to lose when you come from an environment where you don't feel cared for and you don't feel loved. And it's like, you can, because I was thinking about him leaving England to go to California, and I'm like, I can't even fathom doing it. you know. And it's not to say that, like, it's a bad thing if you come from a loving, supportive, family, and you don't want to, like, leave home, and you want a quieter life, and things like that. But it is really interesting. You oftentimes see people who come from tougher upbringings. They're the ones who ultimately make it, because they can kind of take that more nomadic lifestyle and just, like, really just throw it all out there. And they're like, I'm the only one that cares about me. Nobody else cares about me, and I'm just going to go for it, if that makes sense.
it's a really interesting thought. Yeah, Matt,
Or you're a nepo baby and you just
or that
get
or
anything
that.
you want.
Yeah.
No, I don't know much about John. I'll say, Ethan, you might like Brandy Carlisle's cover of a Madman Across the Water.
Oh, I'm sure I would. I love
Still
Brandy.
gives me
Yeah.
chills. It's such a good cover. But I really didn't know much. I do remember, though, vividly growing up, I had never heard the song Crocodile Rock.
Oh, yeah.
And it was a pre-recorded backbeat on a Casio that my cousin had. And we're like hitting it, like, oh, this is called Crocodile Rock. And you hear the piano intro. And then my mom just walking in the room going, la, 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 la. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Like, oh, she's singing the song. Oh, that's the song. Oh, crap. I'm like, good old days.
Amazing.
So good. So good. All right, let's top this off with some Hall of Fame talk. And for people who don't know, and it's probably a lot of people, because he's not a super popular person, and this is actually what I want to talk about. Scott Rowland was the only person who was voted into the Hall of Fame for the year 2023.
By the Baseball Writers Association.
Correct. Yes. He would
McGriff
join
was also
Fred McGriff
elected this year.
Yes, right? From a veterans committee. Both of those names are well known for baseball nerds like us, but for the casual baseball fan, I would be hard pressed to think that anyone knows either one of those people. In friend of the podcast, Joe Poznansky, wrote about this either today or yesterday, and this is kind of what I want to talk about. And he was talking about how, like, McGriff, Ted Simmons, Lee Smith, Harold Baines, Mike Mussina, Edgar Martinez, Scott Rowland, like, all been recent inductions into the Hall of Fame, and all probably worthy, good careers and everything. But he's like, this person that he was talking to didn't know any of these players. Casual baseball fan didn't know any of these players. But they did know the names of Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens and Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire and Alex Rodriguez and Pete Rose and Gary Sheffield. And it's like, the hall of fame, what he's talking about is like this baseball historian, John Thorne, talked quite a bit about the word fame in Hall of Fame and like how that should be the differentiator. Like it was a big deal for David Ortiz. It was a big deal for Derek Jeter. Ken Griffey Jr., some of these people that I can think of off the top of my head, and Joe Paz might have mentioned as well. And I think the three of us, for the most part, have probably been pretty aligned with that, where we would like to see Clemens and Bonds and A-Rod, like the greatest players of our generation, in the fucking Hall of Fame. But it just got me thinking again, like how fucking stupid I think this all is, because it really is just a museum commemorating historic events, and whether you like the person or not, or whether they did something that you agree with or not, they did it, and it entertained you in the moment. I guarantee it. People loved what A-Rod did. People loved what McGwire did. People loved what Clemens did, Bonds did.
And that's the whole point, right?
Yeah,
That's why
yeah.
baseball allowed it, is because baseball was fucking exploding for a few years there.
Yeah.
But did people love lying to grand juries? Did people love
everybody got all high and mighty later on because Americans are fucking stupid hypocrites? Okay,
but why can't we do like the Robbie Alomar punishment, which it seems like maybe Carlos Beltran is getting, and Joe Paz wrote about this too.
Yeah.
Robbie Alomar had a very infamous incident.
Yeah. Domestic, wasn't it domestic violence?
No, spitting in the face of an umpire.
That's right, spitting at an ump. That's right.
On national television, back when games weren't, on all the time and everything.
That's right.
Really despicable act. And I mean, I'm sure he apologized. And I'm sure he regretted it. But it happened. And it's like, I mean, you could probably come up with something bad that every single person who's ever played the game of baseball has done.
I mean, yeah, that's the point. Like, right, Ty Cobb was a terrible person,
a racist.
Yeah,
and there are many like that, by the way. In the Hall of Fame, Hall of Fame, to be.
I don't know. I think. I think the steepest, other than Bonds, has got to be A-Rod, right? Because McGwire and Sosa didn't, other than the rumors, right? They were loved. They were genuinely loved. There wasn't much that those guys did. I mean, McGwire even had the bottle of Andro sitting in, like he wasn't hiding. He wasn't. I was sitting there,
right in the dugout, in the clubhouse.
And it's like, oh well, what is that? Oh, it's just a supplement. Yeah, it's not testosterone, but your body turns it into testosterone, so it's a precursor. So it's pretty much steroid. Like, but he's like, I checked it after I work out. Like, Sammy Sosa. What's the worst thing he did? Cork his bat one year, right? Like. That's my batting practice bat. No, it wasn't. So I think the biggest things and the things that people like, right? Because there's one name he didn't list, but that could be in that Palmeiro, right? Palmeiro's never going to get in because of that snippet of him vehemently like lying to Congress. Like, I did not take. Yes, you did. Yes, you did, Rafi. Yes, you did. Like. And so I think that's probably the hill that A-Rod and Bonds have to. You're right. It's a museum, right? And if you want to get exclusionary, you can make Venn diagrams of everyone in that museum for some way or another, right? Yeah. Maybe not Mike Trout, but that's about it, right? He just doesn't want to be famous. He doesn't. He's an Eagles fan, Fred. So I don't know. I mean, you guys know me. I kind of waffle on this more than you guys. More than most. But we're
going to convince you eventually. Eventually, you're gonna agree with us entirely. It'll happen eventually. Maybe tonight, after what I'm about to say.
But so yeah, I don't know. It's weird, right? The era I think is important to recognize. Regardless, if you even make another room, make a wing, but the era is important to recognize. Make their plaques carved out of acrylic or something. I don't know.
I mean,
But,
Brady
like,
Anderson hit 50 home runs one year. You know, Brett Boone hit 37 homers with 141 RBIs one year. Like,
like, and like Matt, your argument is valid to say like have a separate wing, but then like don't you have to like backtrack then and like go get Mickey Mantle's plaque and redo it?
this is what I was going to talk about.
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean. Like, you could Venn diagram everyone in that. Again, there's maybe a dozen players in there. We can go, that was a perfect person. Like,
yeah. Okay. And for me, though, here's the larger point, right? Is so, yeah, what you guys are saying is exactly right. This Venn diagram, go and find these other guys. If we really, and Joe Paz has kind of written about this in the past too, right? If we really want to talk about like a morality clause and we want to talk about ethics and we want to talk about people in the Hall of Fame being good people, there are many people in the Hall of Fame. Many. I'm not talking about 5. I'm not talking about 10. Okay. I'm talking about dozens. Okay. Figure anybody from the fucking late 1800s and the first half of the 20th century, because everybody was pretty much a racist piece of shit by our modern standards at that time. Okay.
Yep.
There are many people, many in the Hall of Fame who had an aspect of their character that was way fucking worse than taking steroids. Way worse. So all of these people who talk about like A-Rod and Clemens and Bonds and they can't be in it and whatever, I guess if you want to acknowledge the fact that there's like a bunch of other people who are way shittier and you want to kick everybody out and have this morality thing, that's one thing. If you want to have that Hall of Fame, go for it. It's going to be a shitty, tiny, weird Hall of Fame, but you can do it if you want to. Okay. Or the other option is you recognize that humans are complicated. They are not black and white. Some of them are really shitty overall. Some of them are pretty good overall, but just did some shitty things here and there, right? But it's part of being fucking human, and it applies to all of us too, by the way, right? And so I mean, you guys know where I stand, right? But like Clemens, Bonds, A-Rod, not only are we talking about like the best players of our generation, we're talking about like the best players of all time, right? There is a very valid argument that Bonds is literally the greatest of all time, and that Clemens is the greatest pitcher of all time, and that A-Rod is like really, really close too, right? There's valid arguments for that. Now, granted, we know that there's steroids. We know that there are some complicated numbers that resulted from all of the PED usage. But the fact that we have this like museum that is supposed to be this like amazing place that honors and celebrates baseball, and we are not like acknowledging this in any way at all, is like really weird. Now, I don't know the best way to acknowledge it. Like Matt was mentioning, how did you put it, Matt? Acrylics.
Yeah, make it separate. Make it out of acrylic instead of bronze.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, maybe there's something. Maybe there's a visual aspect. Maybe there's like a little disclaimer or something on like it's a separate wing, whatever. But it's like really wild to me that there are still so many people who just refuse to acknowledge it. And I want to piggyback on this really quickly, because Colin, you kind of touched on this about how lots of these people in the past and everything had something bad about them and everything. I was talking to my college buddies about this just like yesterday. I know we said we weren't going to go into Royland, but Royland was the impetus of this conversation. And we were all kind of talking about how sad we are and disappointed because we all like love Rick and Morty. I also love Solar Opposites, which is his other show. And I think that like he is a fucking comedic genius. Like I love his work, right? And at this point, right, and this goes for a lot of people who are entertainers or artists who we end up finding out that they're pretty shitty in one way or another. A lot of people decide, okay, I'm done with this person's stuff. I'm never doing, consuming any of their stuff ever again, and that's it. And I think maybe I've talked about this on the pod maybe a long while back, right? But like, I don't think that that's really a very rational approach, because if you are going to be that picky about morality with all artists of any kind of art, any medium, you are going to narrow yourself down. You're going to give yourself slim pickings really fucking fast, because again, humans are complicated, and either whether they're shitty or whether they're pretty good but just did some shitty stuff, whatever, they're complicated, and there's a lot of artists who are like that. And if you really want to go down that rabbit hole, I don't know, you're just like supremely limiting your life. There are other ways to like punish these people, and we've talked about that a little bit, right? You just don't financially support them or whatever, right? There's various things. But this whole like morality sort of superiority complex, I don't think that it really stands up to hard scrutiny. So I just wanted to tack on to that, I guess.
The best I can say, that I think the best argument I can make to myself as to why those guys belong in there in some capacity somehow. Is right. It's an era, and there's no way we have inducted people who use steroids. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
David Ortiz
David
probably
Ortiz.
used steroids.
He was on the fucking Mitchell report.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So, there are very few in this last 20 years that I'm confident that didn't use it. Right. Frank Thomas was early and often saying, test everyone. Maybe he's one, maybe not. Jim Thome went from a, skinny third baseman to a chunk. Right. And, he could have just, he lifted a lot. Right. I love Jim Thome. He's supposed to be a really nice guy.
By all accounts, yeah.
He could have
be a great guy.
I still want to say that I don't think Randy used it. I want to say Randy's late career was because he really didn't throw a lot of innings until he was 30. But statistically speaking, right, how many pitchers these days who throw as awkwardly and as violently and as fast as he does make it to their 40s, right?
Yeah, and
you
have
got the
those
unicorns like Nolan. Could he be a unicorn like Nolan? Could be, right? He also leverages that 6'10" frame, and he can throw that speed a lot easier than people because of the body mechanics. But
the seasons he had in his late 30s, though, in his late 30s, he had like 4 of the greatest pitching seasons ever. I don't know. I'm skeptical that it could be just because of his big frame or fewer innings before age.
Fewer miles in his arm, right? Yeah. So
I love Randy,
these things, but I can't, right? And I'm hoping like next year shoe-in. Who's next year shoe-in for the ballot?
Adrian Beltre,
right? I really hope he didn't either.
Oh, I'm sure he did. Of course,
he was a fantastic player and everyone loved him. But
he hit 48 home runs in his contract year. His previous career high was like 21, and then he hit 48 his contract year. Come on. You really think he was that inspired by the contract? If he was that inspired by the contract year and he did better, maybe he would have hit 30 or something.
I mean, then do you think Judge hit
48?
Did Judge take steroids this year then?
This is that's an interesting question, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, so here's the thing. Did he take steroids in 2017 when he hit 52? Because I don't think 52 to 62 is that drastic of a change, especially for a guy who's 6'7", 280, right?
Well, but now, what about a guy who's 6'10", 240 throwing fastballs?
The point is the age in that case for me, right? I think, if we look at baseball history, it's just so rare to have seasons like that when you're in your late 30s. And Randy and Bonds and Clemens all did that. They had not just good years in their late 30s, they had absurd all-time great seasons in their late 30s. And that's just not the way the human body works if we use centuries of data. Or at least if you just want to stick with baseball, 120 years of data, whatever, right? We've got a lot of fucking data on this. So that to me is the sticking point, right? Yep. Judgy is only 30. He's, the big size, right? We can't go just on that. It's possible he took steroids, but I think there's probably enough testing these days that maybe he didn't.
Maybe he took them though during the lockout when there was no testing.
Yeah, maybe. And I mean, I'll say again, right? I've said this before and I'll reiterate, I am probably, maybe it's just because I'm cynical, but I'm probably in like the 99th percentile in terms of when it comes to estimations of the steroid era, how many people used. I think it was pretty much 100% or close to it. That people that tried something that is now illegal. I'm not saying that they did it on the reg, but I'm saying pretty close to 100% tried something, if not did it multiple times, that is now illegal. And that includes, I'm going to say again, like I did last time we talked about this, Derek Jeter. It fucking includes him.
Oh, come on.
Mariano Rivera and any
there's going to be at least like 3 prudes who are like, I've never smoked anything ever.
I don't know. There's
going to be those guys there
in somewhere. Major League Baseball. I don't know. Maybe.
It is true, Matt. I have never smoked a cigarette in my life.
Hookah, cigar, weed, cigarette, no smoke. I live
you've never done any
sheltered. But I get fucking 9,000 beers for you.
That's true. You made up for all of those things with the amount of beers you've had.
My liver's like,
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so I have a few points. Matt, you talking about Nolan Ryan, this is the first time I've ever thought about this, but Nolan Ryan played long enough into his career, and he didn't have the dominating seasons like Ethan talks about with Randy. But he did play long enough into his career where steroids had entered the discussion in baseball. And I do wonder if Nolan Ryan is possibly somebody who took steroids. Yeah. Second thing I wanted to say is that it is good it is good that we want to hold human beings to a higher morality standard, moral standard
Sure. Yeah.
in this world. So I don't think any of us, the three of us, I don't think anyone's saying that we just want to let douchebags and shitty people and terrible people. But I think there is a really big fundamental difference between the steroids people, the specifically like the Bonds, the A-Rods, the Clemens, the McGuires that we're talking about, and then people like Aroldis Chapman and Trevor Bauer and things like that. Now, neither one of them and you know, Ramon and they're not Hall of Famers anyway, right? But you know, like an Omar Vizquel, you know, if you do something that's truly and actually shitty thing, to use your word, Ethan, like then I could see the argument to say like, okay, let's not celebrate this person because we do live in a society where we want people to be better, and that is a good thing. So that part I can buy. But what I can never get on board with is keeping people out who are doing something that was literally, as you said, Matt, a part of the game, an accepted part of the game. There was no testing. It was not illegal. Major League Baseball profited off of that. Bud Selig is in the Hall of Fame, which we have said multiple times on this podcast.
Fucking absurd.
The guy who oversaw Major League Baseball is in the Hall of Fame.
Remember, when you got like Bonds and A-Rod, they changed the rules and said this is no longer allowed, and then they still were involved in it, right? Balco was after the rules changed.
Yeah, so I think that's an exception.
New Genesis or whatever the fuck A-Rod was doing in Miami was after the rules changed, and they still did it.
But McGuire and Sosa, for instance, would have been before.
Yes.
Right. So why are they, like, just to use them as examples? Like,
but even
why are they being
even still, Bonds is a Hall of Famer anyway.
Just from the first decade of his career.
Yeah. A-Rod, you probably got to stretch it a little bit.
I would say same thing. First decade of his career, Hall of Famer.
Yeah, but he was taking steroids in that first decade.
But it was well, and I guess that is post. We would have gotten up to 2006,
2003,
in that first decade. Okay,
yeah. So it gets a little gray there, right? But
again, I can't say who didn't, right? So that's where I'm just trying to maybe throw some scenarios out why players are getting extra scrutiny. I mean, right? Because I mean, A-Rod and Bonds were dicks too, but that's not there's plenty of dicks in the Hall of Fame as well, right?
I mean, here's what I'm just gonna end with this, and you guys can take it where you want. Fucking Jose Altuve is gonna be in the Hall of Fame one day.
Yeah,
and he was part of the most outrageous cheating scandal in Major League Baseball history by some accounts.
Oh man, can we show up to his induction with trash cans?
Right.
I wonder if people will. I kind of imagine.
So how can Jose Altuve be getting all this support? You know, he's still a few years from being done with his career, right? And then he's got 5 years before he's even eligible. But he's already getting support saying like, oh, that's not going to keep him out of the Hall of Fame. So how can you say fucking Jose Altuve is going to get in the Hall of Fame and leave A-Rod out?
Wait, are people really saying that? Oh, who's going to get it in though? Like,
yeah. Joe Paz is pretty confident that he's getting in.
I mean, it's a judgment call, right? It's all about this sort of degree, right? When we were talking about this, the degrees of morality here, right? It seems like for a majority of people, the sign stealing, trash can pounding, cheating scandal from the Astros is not nearly as big of a deal as the steroids.
Like, oh, he cheated just like A-Rod did, but he didn't break the law, so it's okay. Like,
yeah. So I'm not saying that I agree with this, right? But I think that that's what it is for a lot of people. And I mean, I do understand, and maybe I've talked about this, I think the reason with like Bonds and Clemens and A-Rod, I think the reason that people are so fired up about that and the reason that it is still preventing those guys from getting into the Hall of Fame is because baseball is a sport that is obsessed with its history and is obsessed with statistics. And we've talked about this, and we are among that, obviously, right? As huge baseball nerds, we are too. And so there are certain things that are sacred to baseball fans. And so when you talk about all of these records just getting blown up by guys in their late 30s, it just feels wrong to a lot of people. It even feels wrong to me, even after everything I just ranted about 10 minutes ago, right? It feels wrong to me when I think about Bonds' 73 homers, and I think about Sammy Sosa hitting 60 homers 3 times in 4 years when it had only been done twice in history.
I love
before
that
1998.
And he never led the league.
Yeah, and he never led the league. Exactly, right. And that feels fucking gross. No, I think did he lead the one year?
He must have.
I thought McGuire beat him both times and then Bonds the other time.
No, because it was 2000 was the third one, right? Wasn't it 3 years in a row?
No, there was like 2 years, then 1 year where he hit like 50, and then he hit more than 60.
How unlucky.
Let's look at this right now.
Yeah, check it, Matt.
Sammy Sosa. He's got seasons of 66, 63, and 64, and none of them are black ink.
Yeah.
What did Big Mac hit in 99? 65?
Yeah, I think so. I think he did 70 and then 65.
In 2000, he led the league with 50.
Right, which is super weird how that happened.
And he led the league in 2002 with 49, but his 360 homer seasons
he did not lead. And that feels fucking gross, right? When you look at like a century plus of baseball history, or even if you want to just do the modern era and do just a few decades, whatever, that doesn't feel good, right? As somebody who loves the history of the game, loves the numbers like we do, that feels really bad, to see that. It's like, man, that just, what did these guys do? How did they manipulate the game to make this happen? And so I understand, right? I think there's a deep emotional component, but I think we have to try and like get past that, and we need to try to look at it a little bit more rationally. And if you do that, I think you find that the argument to keep all of those guys out doesn't hold much water. So.
Yeah. Brian Giles' career OPS plus was still higher than Sammy Sosa's.
Is that right? Yeah. Now that is fascinating.
Yeah.
Amazing.
That is amazing.
I really did, by the way. I was going to guess him. I wasn't bullshitting you guys in the text. I really was.
I
was thought of it in the car.
It popped up on my YouTube recommendations. It was like the most underrated player of the steroid era. And I was like, wow. Yeah.
It was only because you gave the Pirates Padres clue. Literally for like 10 minutes during my drive, I'm like racking my brain. I'm like, okay, who in my childhood was like really good who played for the Pirates and the Padres? And it took a while, but I eventually was like, I think Brian Giles played for both of them. And I remember he was pretty good.
His peak 4-year period, he was better than Larry Jones.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, he was playing at a really high level, but no one knew. Like no one cared.
Well, he would have been overshadowed by these other guys we're talking about. Yeah. Wow. How about that?
Hey, one last shout out, Colin. Are you counting down? You've got 167 to go.
I don't know. What am I counting down to?
Points until your buddy LeBron Yames passes Kareem.
Oh yeah, it's roughly like 6 games, I think.
LeBron Yames.
LeBron Yames
average. Yeah.
Now, just to put that in perspective, right? There is another child prodigy basketball star born in Akron, Ohio, who's only 4 years younger than LeBron. What's his name, guys? Stephen Curry. Only 4 years younger than LeBron, right? He is 17,000 points behind him. So this is pretty momentous, right? So you've got Mr. 3-point, shoot him up, lead league in scoring a cup, but still nowhere near.
Yeah.
The next closest active player is Carmelo Anthony, and he is 10,000 points behind LeBron.
Wow, really amazing.
So yeah, pretty cool. Good for him.
Yeah.
Still mystery as to whether or not Kareem's going to be involved or not, because it sounds like he's being a bit of a sourpuss over it. But
I read on his Substack that he's ready to celebrate.
He is good. Okay, good. Because for the longest time they were saying the Lakers said that he was conspicuously silent because he thought no one would ever come close to his record. But
yeah, I mean, I'm sure he thought nobody would ever. It's a pretty insane record, but he I don't know, from my accounts, he doesn't seem like a very vindictive person.
No, he seems like a quirky weirdo.
Yeah, he's definitely very nerdy, that's for sure, which I love because I've read a ton of his books. I'm subscribed to his Substack. I'm definitely a Kareem fanboy. So
Really quickly, just to add one postscript to the Brian Giles thing. 902 career OPS. That is really, really fucking good.
Yeah.
If we were to look up like career numbers and look at people who played like X amount of games, X amount of seasons, whatever, and had like a 900 or over career OPS, we would be looking at a really fucking impressive list and a small list too.
Well,
now, granted, I think steroids were definitely part of that. I was just looking at his numbers, but
steroids could be part of it, but look at his walks numbers.
yeah, well, he drew a lot of walks.
That was it. Like they said, they talked about, again, he had a Tony Gwynn-esque mastery of the strike zone, but he did not get, because he had an absurd like 135 walks in 1 year and didn't lead the league because Bonds had his nutso intentional walk
250.
So,
yeah.
You know, he was largely under the radar, and it took me a while, you know, before I was like, okay, I'm going to pull up the stats and look before I went, oh wow, because you're right, he looks like I mean, his upper body's kind of big, but he swings kind of awkwardly. He doesn't have a beautiful power stroke. He had a gap to gap line drive stroke.
Yeah, and I mean, just looking like from 99 to 02, which is the 4-year prime, Matt, that you sent us the combined numbers for, he hit between 35 and 39 homers those 4 seasons every year, 35 to 39 homers. The rest of his career, he hit 20 once and 23 once, and everything else was below 20. So, you know, granted, some guys, some guys do have primes that are like that good, and then they dip off a lot, but I don't know, 99 to 02, like
his move to San Diego, which was a homecoming,
a horrible hitter's park, right?
Really just.
Yeah,
they talked about him maybe having another 60 home runs or so if he played in a hitter-friendly park.
It's interesting. I mean, OPS Plus tries to. I mean, obviously, you can't do for homers, but it does try to account for ballparks. And his OPS Plus was still quite high those first few years with the Padres. So yeah, that I wonder if he was in a better hitter's ballpark.
But it was weird. It was one of those, like, I knew the name, I knew he was consistently good. I didn't realize he was that good.
That good. Yeah. Quite impressive. Yeah.
And we didn't introduce ourselves, but before we wrap up, 2 jocks and 1 schlub. What do you got?
2 jocks and a schlub.
Schlub.
We don't say one anymore because, you know.
Thank you for the
2 girls,
distinction.
1 cup. We actually didn't even talk about Scott Rowland, though, did we?
No.
What's there to talk about?
I think there's some interesting stuff there.
2,000 hits, 300 home runs, a 280 batting average.
Yeah, and if you look at it like that, it's super underwhelming. Yeah. And many baseball fans would be like, what the fuck?
Yeah, but his WAR tells a different, his WAR tells you, okay, he must have been a defensive wizard.
Yeah,
which he was.
Yeah, and we just didn't know how to properly value that until basically technology got good enough, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah, his counting stats are a large.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But just like very good player, but not great. But then you take into account the level of his defense. You know, and we're talking about like, I don't know, a top 5 or 10 defensive third baseman in history, right? It seems like that's worthy of the Hall of Fame to me. Yeah.
What were you gonna say, Matt?
Oh, I was just saying our name because we didn't say our name yet.
We never say our names.
I'm trying to now.
Oh, do you expect a bunch of new listeners?
I was pitching up the podcast.
Listened to us for
2 weeks ago.
Oh, were you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Got to get some more people on here. I got mugs to give away.
If you've listened to us for over an hour, talk about nothing.
Hey, that's the whole point.
That is the whole point.
That is the whole point.
Here, I know we're wrapping up and we do shout outs. Let me give a shout out to my cousin Ryland. One of my other cousins got married this past weekend on Saturday. And so I saw my cousin Ryland for the first time in a while, and we were chatting, and he was asking if we're still doing the podcast because he hasn't seen posts about it anymore. Colin used to do like social media posts like every week, and I don't think he's been doing it much anymore. Colin was too good
for us.
So, yeah, exactly. And so Rye was asking me, "Are you guys still doing it?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, same deal. We're doing the thing." And I was shocked he listened to it, and I was like, "Wait, really? You listened to it?" He's like, "Oh yeah, of course I did. Like it was great. I loved it. Like you guys are like super fun to listen to or whatever." And I was like, holy fuck. I mean, so anyways, Rye, if you happen to pick it back up and listen to this episode, thank you for the kind words. That was amazing. But
yeah, it's like my cousin Jack when he told me he listened, and he was one leaving comments on there like, Oh shit! Like, thanks, Jack.
Yeah,
he said he liked listening to us, right?
And it's just fun. It's funny. What's the funniest part to me is like there are some episodes I think where we talk about sort of like general, more mainstream topics, that like more people can relate to. But I feel like most times we are going into the weeds about fucking baseball. And like deep nerdy shit about baseball, and I'm like, really, the people are listening to this, like they'll keep it on, they'll keep going, but it must just be like the nature of the conversation, the tone of the conversation or whatever.
I mean, I feel like I try and drag you guys away to other weird shit, but I'm also the one that's gonna like look up Brian Giles stats for 3 hours, so like I can't really say I'm helping.
Can we just acknowledge really quickly though that before you gave the Pirates Padres clue, which is how I figured it out, before that I came up with Jeff Bagwell was my first guess, which is like a main comp. I mean, that's very impressive.
Both your guesses were
both
good
of my
comps.
guesses.
Who was your
and
second?
Lance Berkman. Both of my guesses were excellent.
They were both brought up in the YouTube video I was watching as like very
I just want to give myself some credit.
And Berkman especially, they were like, yeah, Berkman gets a lot more love and his career numbers are quickly a lot the same. But what they did is you can go and look up highlights on MLB.com, and they're like, Berkman, whose career wasn't actually as good as Giles, has 37 highlights on MLB.com. Giles has 6. And they're like, do you know how hard it was to make this video with just 6 highlights? Like,
yeah, that's super interesting. I think, what you were saying about playing in Pittsburgh and San Diego, because Berkman was on those like good Astros teams with Biggio and Bagwell, which is also why I think he's underrated, because he was playing with Biggio and Bagwell.
Oh yeah, the Killer Bees. I forgot about that.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, absolutely makes sense that he would be getting more attention than Giles, who was playing for mediocre Pittsburgh and San Diego teams.
Yeah.
We still got to see a game in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, the park is supposed to be gorgeous.
I mean, I saw Metallica there.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I was on the field.
Oh, cool.
But I haven't seen a game there.
That would be fun.
Next week we can go through the schedule and figure out which game we're going to.
Oh, yeah. They
play in Pittsburgh September 15th to the 17th. I've got it written out already.
Yeah. We were talking about career OPSs before, just real quick. I know we need to like wrap it up, and we keep adding little things on. Exactly right. Berkman's
baseball stats forever, friends.
Exactly. Oh, that's good. That's good. Berkman's career OPS 943.
Ooh.
Wow.
OPS plus though. What's his OPS plus?
Oh, let's see. OPS plus for his career is 144.
Okay,
also,
that might be
really
Giles.
Excellent.
Yeah,
really excellent.
What was his OPS during his half-year stint with the Yankees?
Oh my God, I forgot that ever happened. Yep. Okay.
Yep.
He was terrible.
707. And his OPS plus for that stint was under 100. The only other time in his career that he was under 100 is 34 games for his cup of coffee as a rookie, and then his very last season where he played 73 games with Texas. Of course, so he's like a Joey Votto situation. He came to New York and just fucking cratered for half
Joey
of the year.
Gallo.
Oh, what did I say?
Votto.
Oh, sorry. Joey Gallo, obviously. Thank you for the correction. The next year with St. Louis, he had a 959 OPS.
Yeah, he was big for the when they win the series 2011. I'm pretty sure he was like
11.
A catalyst for that team.
Yeah, 11. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow, very very interesting. Yeah, he beats Giles. Giles was 137, so close though, real close.
Yeah,
for OPS plus.
That trade deadline, the Yankees got Lance Berkman and Pudge, and they still didn't make the playoffs.
Oh shit, I forgot about Pudge.
Yeah, man.
Damn it.
If that had happened like 8 years earlier, gosh, that would have been really exciting.
I still think both of them were pretty good at that point. I mean, maybe Pudge a little less, but
was Pudge on that team, or was he another year?
What's that?
Was Pudge a different year?
No, same year, 2008.
Yeah, that looks right, Kyle.
I'm telling you.
I got Berkman on 2010.
Oh, Pudge is 08. Pudge, that's correct. Berkman was 2010.
Berkman was 2010.
He was a full year player?
No, he only played half a year with the Yankees.
But it was 2010, not 2008.
Oh, wow.
And Pudge was horrible with us. Yeah, it was like the worst half a season he ever had.
Totally misremembering that. So that would make more sense though as to why it was so crazy that he was so good in 2011. is because he was so bad with the Yankees in 2010.
Yep.
Damn it,
Yep.
Pudge.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to stop talking because I keep adding on these little things. I'm done.
All right, boys. Same time next week.
Sounds good.